Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of The English Whore. I'm your host, Sophia, and today we're going to dive into a very important topic: how to improve your English through everyday experiences. Joining me today are Daniel and Jacob.
Thanks for having us.
About sitting down with a textbook. It's about incorporating it into your daily life. Daniel, what do you think is one of the best ways to improve your English in a natural way?
I think one of the best ways is simply by surrounding yourself with English as much as possible. Whether it's listening to podcasts, watching, reading, it's important to expose yourself to the language every day.
That's such a good point. I agree. I think finding content you really enjoy is key. If you're passionate about something, whether it's cooking, sports, or music, watch or read about it in English. That way you're learning and having fun at the same time.
That's so true. When you enjoy what you're learning about, it feels less like studying and more like just having fun. So, Jacob, do you
Flashcards. You can write down new words or phrases you come across and then review them regularly. There are apps that make this easy, so it's a great tool to learn vocabulary on the go.
Flashcards are great, and I would also recommend learning vocabulary in context. It's one thing to memorize a list of words, but it's much more useful when you see them used in a sentence. That way, you'll understand how they fit into conversations.
That's a fantastic idea, Daniel. When you learn vocabulary in context, you can remember how to use it in real situations. Plus, it helps with grammar too, right?
Exactly. It's like learning a puzzle. You start to understand how everything fits together, and it becomes more natural to speak and write.
You both make excellent points. I think another big challenge for learners is overcoming the fear of speaking. What advice would you give to someone who feels nervous about speaking English, especially when they're just starting out?
It's normal to feel nervous at first, but my advice is to just go for it. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll get. Don't worry too much about making mistakes. Everyone makes them, even native speakers. The important thing is to keep trying.
I agree. One thing I've found helpful is practicing with a friend or language partner. You don't have to worry about being perfect, and it creates a safe space to make mistakes and learn.
I love that advice. Having someone to practice with really helps you build confidence. And you can learn so much from each other, even if you're at different levels.
Definitely. And also, speaking to yourself in English is a great way to practice when you don't have anyone else around. You can describe what day, talk about your day, or even have a mini conversation with yourself. It helps you get used to the sound of your own voice speaking in English.
That's a good tip, Daniel. It helps with fluency because you're not waiting for someone else to respond. You're creating your own dialogue.
Yes, it's such a helpful trick to keep your language skills sharp. So, for anyone listening, don't be afraid to speak, even if it's just to yourself. It's all part of the process.
And of course, you can always listen to podcasts like this one to immerse yourself in English. Hearing real conversations helps you get used to the flow of the language.
Absolutely. Podcasts are a great way to practice listening, too. It's just like having a conversation with someone, but you can listen at your own pace. You can rewind if you need to and really focus on understanding the words and phrases used.
That's right. Podcasts are great for learning because they often use casual, everyday language. And just like listening to conversations, it helps you get familiar with the rhythm and tone of the language.
And the best part is that you can listen while you're doing other things, whether you're commuting, cooking, or exercising. You can be learning while you go about your day.
Exactly. Language learning doesn't have to be a separate task. You can fit it into your daily routine. So, let's talk about reading. Daniel, what role do you think reading plays in?
Reading is huge. When you read, you expose yourself to new vocabulary, grammar structures, and expressions. Plus, it's a great way to see how language works in context. You can pick up on things you wouldn't normally hear in spoken conversations.
I totally agree with that. Reading helps reinforce everything you're learning, and I recommend reading things that you enjoy, whether it's novels, articles, or blogs. When you like what you're reading, it doesn't feel like a chore.
That's an excellent point. Reading something you enjoy will keep you motivated. If you don't understand everything right away, that's okay. Just keep going. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns and learn more naturally.
Yeah, and don't forget about online articles or websites in English. Even if it's something simple like reading the news or blogs, you're still building your vocabulary and understanding of the language.
Right, and reading online often gives you the added benefit of learning about different cultures and current events, which can help you understand the language in real world contexts.
Absolutely. And speaking of culture, language and culture go hand in hand. The way people speak is influenced by where they're from, their background, and even their social circles. Have you ever had a moment where learning about culture helped you understand the language better?
I think one of the best ways to understand a language is to understand the culture. For example, learning idiomatic expressions or slang that might not make sense directly but are used in everyday conversation.
That's so true. When you understand the cultural context, it helps you figure out why people say things a certain way. It makes your language learning experience more authentic.
Exactly. Language is a reflection of culture, and if you can understand the culture, you'll have a better grasp of the language. So, whether you're learning slang expressions or just how people interact, it all ties together. Right, and understanding the culture makes it easier to fit into conversations, because you'll know when to use certain phrases or expressions. Jacob, do you have any tips for improving listening skills in English?
Absolutely. One great way to improve listening skills is by exposing yourself to a variety of English accents and speaking speeds. You can watch videos from different regions or listen to podcasts that feature speakers from different countries. This helps you understand how English sounds in different contexts and makes you more adaptable when listening to various speakers.
That's a great tip. I think practicing listening to native speakers, especially in fast-paced conversations, is a challenge but also a great way to get better understanding on the flow of speech. Watching TV shows or movies can really help with this too. You get to hear
And don't forget about turning on subtitles if you're watching something in English. That way you can follow along while still focusing on listening. It's a great way to learn new words and see how they are used in context.
Oh, definitely. Subtitles can help bridge the gap, especially when you're listening to something challenging. But I also recommend challenging yourself to watch without subtitles every once in a while. It forces your brain to focus more on the sounds and meanings, which really helps in the long run.
yes. The more you push yourself, the more you'll improve. But it's all about every time you feel like it at first.
That's a really important point. Learning every little bit adds up. You won't notice the progress right away, but trust me, it's happening.
And another great way to practice listening is by participating in discussions, whether it's with a teacher, a language partner, or even online groups. The more you engage in conversations, the more you'll improve your listening and speaking skills.
That's a fantastic point.
I've participated in a couple of language exchange programs. I've found that they're extremely helpful because you get to speak with native speakers, and you learn so much more than just textbook language. The best part is that you can help someone else with your language, too.
That's the beauty of language exchange, isn't it? It's mutually beneficial. You're not just learning, you're giving back too. And it's a great way to make connections with people from different parts of the world.
Exactly. Language exchange is not just about learning. It's about building relationships and understanding different perspectives. It adds so much more depth to the learning experience. Plus, you get to learn things that you won't find in textbooks.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's the small, everyday things people say that can make a big difference in your language skills. It's like learning insider knowledge about how people talk and interact.
And once you get the hang of these real-world expressions, it's much easier to engage in casual conversations with native speakers. You'll feel more confident, and that confidence will push you to keep improving.
That confidence is key. Language learning is really about building trust in yourself and your ability to communicate. It's about taking those little steps forward, even when it feels challenging.
It's so true. Sometimes you just have to trust the process, even when you're not sure of yourself. But over time, all the little steps add up, and you start to notice a big difference in your skills.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes. In fact, mistakes are some of the best ways to learn. If you're not making mistakes, you're probably not pushing yourself enough. It's all part of the journey.
Couldn't agree more, Jacob. Mistakes are just stepping stones to mastery. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn something new, and it helps you grow in the language.
And don't forget to celebrate your progress, no matter how small it may seem. If you've learned a new word or had a conversation in English, that's a success. Every victory counts.
Absolutely. Every step forward is a success. Whether it's learning a new word, completing a conversation, or just getting through a difficult listening exercise, it all counts toward your goal.
And the great thing is, the more you practice, the more natural it will feel. You won't have to think about the words you're using. They'll just come to you.
That's what we all aim for, right? For English to become second nature. And with consistency, practice, and a positive mindset, that's exactly what will happen.
Definitely. It's all about making it a part of your daily life, not just something you do for an hour or two each week. The more you immerse yourself in English, the easier it will become to use it naturally.
And the best part is, you'll start to enjoy the process. When you start seeing the results, it becomes something you look forward to rather than a task you need to check off.
I completely agree. The journey of learning a language can be so rewarding, and every day you get a little bit better. So for anyone listening, don't get discouraged. Keep going, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep enjoying the process.
That's the key right there. Enjoying the process. Language learning is a lifelong journey, and there's no need to rush. It's about consistent effort, and as long as you keep at it, you're going to see improvement.
Exactly. So, whether you're just starting or you've been learning for years, remember to celebrate every milestone along the way.
Well said. Let's keep that positive attitude going, and remember to keep practicing every single day. The more you practice, the more natural English will feel. Keep enjoying the journey, and we'll be right here with you every step of the way. So, we've covered a lot today, from tips on improving listening skills to the importance of making mistakes and embracing the learning process. But one thing we haven't touched on yet is how to stay motivated through the ups and downs. Daniel, how do you stay motivated when learning feels tough?
Great question, Sophia. For me, it's all about setting small, achievable goals. Sometimes, it can feel overwhelming when you think about mastering a language, so breaking it down into bite-sized goals helps a lot. Whether it's learning 5 new words a day, or finishing a chapter in your textbook, those small wins keep me motivated.
That's such a good point. For me, it's about connecting with the reason why I started learning in the first place. Maybe it's because I want to travel, or connect with people from different cultures, or even work in a global environment. When I remind myself of those reasons, it gives me a sense of purpose and keeps me focused.
I love that. Remembering your why is so powerful. It helps keep the fire going even on the tough days. Sometimes we get caught up in the day-to-day struggles and forget the bigger picture. What about you, Jacob? Do you have any other ways to stay on track?
Yes, I also find it really helpful to make learning fun. I mix things up by doing different activities, whether it's watching movies, listening to music, or playing language games. It keeps me from getting bored and helps me stay excited about the process.
Oh, I totally agree. When it feels like a chore, it's easy to lose interest. But when you make it fun, you start looking forward to your study sessions. Sometimes I even challenge myself with language apps, like Duolingo, and try to beat my high score. It makes it more like a game than a task.
That's such a great tip. Learning doesn't always have to be serious. The more you enjoy it, the easier it becomes to stick with it. And don't forget about rewards. When you hit a milestone, treat yourself to something special. It could be a small celebration or something you've been wanting to do for a while.
Oh, definitely. Rewarding yourself is a great way to keep up the momentum, it reinforces the positive behavior and makes the process feel less like a grind. Plus, it's always nice to celebrate progress.
One thing that keeps me motivated too is seeing the progress I've made over time. It's easy to get discouraged when you don't see improvement right away. But when you look back at where you started, it's incredible to see how far you've come.
I couldn't agree more. Sometimes we're so focused on where we want to go that we forget to appreciate how far we've come. Tracking your progress, whether it's through a language journal or by reviewing old lessons, can really highlight just how much you've achieved.
And that sense of achievement is contagious. It makes you want to keep going and hit the next milestone. Plus, you get better at recognizing the progress you're making, even in small ways.
Exactly. Even if it's just understanding a new phrase or being able to hold a simple conversation, those moments are worth celebrating. The more you appreciate those little wins, the more motivated you'll be to keep going.
That's such a positive mindset to have. And for our listeners out there, remember, progress isn't always about perfection. It's about improvement, consistency, and pushing yourself just a little bit more each day.
Right? And even if you hit a rough patch or feel stuck, just know it's a normal part of the journey. Everyone goes through it, and the key is to keep going, even when it feels tough.
Yes, those tough moments are often where the most growth happens. So, if you're feeling frustrated, just take a deep breath, step back, and then keep going. Every challenge is an opportunity to learn and grow.
And one last thing I'd add, surround yourself with positive influences. Whether it's a language learning community, a supportive friend, or even a podcast like this, having people to encourage and inspire you can make all the difference.
Absolutely. We're all in this together, and having a support system can keep you going when you're feeling down. So, keep connecting with others, share your journey, and remember, you're never alone on this path.
Exactly. So, whether you're just starting out or you've been learning for years, keep pushing forward, stay motivated, and remember that every step is a step toward your goal. I love that we're all so aligned on the importance of support and motivation. It really makes such a difference when we have people around us who understand the challenges and celebrate the victories with us.
Definitely. And Sophia, I think it's worth mentioning how important it is to make time for language learning. Sometimes life gets in the way, and it's easy to put it off. But even just 15-20 minutes a day can make a huge difference in the long run.
That's such a good point, Daniel. Consistency is key. It doesn't have to be hours of study every day, but if you commit to a little bit each day, you'll see progress faster than you think, even if it's just listening to a podcast, reading an article, or practicing speaking for a few minutes. Those moments add up.
Yes, I completely agree. It's all about making it a habit. When you make learning English a part of your daily routine, it becomes natural. It doesn't feel like an extra task. It just becomes something you do, like brushing your teeth.
Exactly. And when you start noticing the progress, it becomes even easier to make time for it. You get more excited about learning because you start seeing the results. It's like a snowball effect. Small efforts turning into big rewards.
And the best part is, the more you practice, the more you're able to use English in real life situations.
Important point, Jacob. The real-world application of language learning is so rewarding. Sometimes we get caught up in grammar rules and vocabulary lists, but it's the moments when we can actually use what we've learned that make it all come together.
Yes, those moments are priceless. I remember the first time I had a conversation with a native speaker and realized how much I could understand, the conversation. It was such a confidence booster, and it showed me how far I had come.
Absolutely. It's those moments that keep you going. It might not feel like much in the beginning, but every little piece adds up to something bigger. The more you practice speaking and listening, the more natural it becomes.
And the more confident you get, too. Confidence is a huge part of language learning. It's okay to make mistakes, but the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll feel. Eventually, you won't be afraid to speak, even if it's not perfect.
That's a great point. It's all about building that confidence and embracing the process. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll get. And when you're comfortable, the language comes more easily.
Exactly. So for anyone out there feeling unsure or intimidated by speaking, just take the plunge. Start small, and with each conversation, you'll get better and more confident. Everyone starts somewhere, and it's all part of the journey.
So true. And don't forget to celebrate every victory, no matter how small. Each step you take is an achievement. Whether it's understanding a new word or having a conversation without pausing every few seconds, those moments are all worth celebrating.
That's the mindset we should all have. Language learning is a journey, and every step counts. Even when it feels challenging, remember that you're moving forward, and that's what really matters.
And with the right mindset and persistence, there's no limit to what you can achieve. The more you put in, the more you'll get out of it.
Exactly, Jacob. It's about embracing the journey and staying motivated along the way. You'll have days when it feels tough, but the key is to keep going, because every day of learning brings you closer to your goal. And remember, it's okay to ask for help or lean on others for support. You're never alone in this.
Right? We all have those moments when we feel stuck or frustrated. But that's when you need to keep pushing and remind yourself of how much you've already accomplished. You're on the right track.
And like we've mentioned before, learning is not about being perfect, it's about making progress. So don't worry about making mistakes or having an imperfect conversation. What matters is that you're learning, practicing, and improving.
Well said, Jacob. And for our listeners out there, just remember to take it one step at a time. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and enjoy the process. The journey may be long, but it's totally worth it.
Absolutely. Keep going, keep learning, and keep practicing. Every little bit counts. And most importantly, have fun with it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Keep up the great work, everyone. You're doing awesome, and we're here cheering you on every step of the way.
Yes,
On track. What do you think about setting language learning goals?
Oh, I think it's crucial. Without a clear goal, it's easy to feel like you're just going through the motions without much progress. Setting specific, measurable goals helps you track your progress and stay motivated. Whether it's mastering a certain number of words or having a 5-minute conversation in English, goals give you a sense of direction.
I completely agree. When you have a clear goal in mind, you know exactly what you're working towards. It's also satisfying to look back and see how far you've come once you've achieved that goal. You can always break it down into smaller goals, too, like learning 10 new words a week or watching a movie in English without subtitles.
So you set a goal of listening to an English podcast for 20 minutes every day. The point is to make it specific and meaningful to you.
Exactly. And when you hit those small goals, you get that boost of confidence and motivation to keep going. It's like a snowball effect. You start small, but each accomplishment fuels you to aim higher. Plus, there's nothing more rewarding than achieving a goal you've set for yourself.
I think another thing that can help in this regard is keeping track of your progress, whether it's through journaling, taking notes, or using apps to measure your improvements. Being able to look back and see how much you've learned is so motivating.
That's such a good idea. Keeping a journal of new words, phrases, or concepts that you've learned can be really helpful. It's a visual reminder of how far you've come and can also highlight areas where you still need improvement. Plus, it's always great to reflect on how much you've learned after a few months or even a year.
And journaling doesn't have to be a formal process. It could be as simple as writing a few sentences about your day in English, or noting down a new phrase you've learned. It makes the language learning experience feel more real and personal.
Another thing that I find helpful is celebrating your learning milestones. If you've learned 100 new words, take a moment to congratulate yourself. It may seem like a small achievement, but in the context of language learning, every little milestone matters.
That's such a great way to stay motivated. It's easy to overlook small victories, but they add up over time. So often, we focus on what we still need to learn, but it's just as important to recognize what we've already accomplished.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's easy to get frustrated when things aren't moving as fast as we want. But remembering how much progress you've already helped put things into perspective. Language learning isn't a race. It's a marathon, it takes time, and that's okay.
I think what's really important is that everyone's journey is different. Some people may learn quicker than others, and that's completely fine. What matters is that you're taking consistent steps, no matter how small, and enjoying the process along the way.
I love that. Enjoying the process. That's something that can really make language learning feel less like a chore and more like a fun, engaging activity. It's about embracing the journey, rather than just focusing on the destination.
I've found that integrating English into my daily life has made it feel more natural. For example, watching my favorite shows in English or reading topics I'm passionate about. It doesn't feel like studying. It's just part of what I do every day.
Exactly. And you can do that with anything you're interested in, sports, music, cooking, whatever it is. When you make learning English part of your daily routine, it doesn't feel like an obligation. It just becomes something you enjoy.
That's a fantastic tip. The more you can make English a part of your everyday life, the less it will feel like a separate task. It just becomes woven into the fabric of your daily routine, and it happens naturally.
And I think another helpful strategy is to find a community of learners or native speakers to interact with. Being part of a group gives you a sense of accountability and makes the experience more social and fun. Whether it's a language exchange partner, an online forum, or a local meetup group, it's great to have people to practice with.
Yes, having that support system is so valuable. It can be tough at times, but when you have someone else who is also learning or a native speaker who can help, it makes the whole experience so much easier. You can share your struggles, celebrate your successes, and motivate each other.
Absolutely. And sometimes, just chatting with someone can make all the difference. Even if it's a short conversation, it helps you build confidence and see how much you can actually understand and communicate.
For sure. And as you start interacting more, you'll also start to pick up on nuances of the language, expressions, slang, and cultural contexts that you wouldn't necessarily learn from a textbook.
That's so true. It's these small things that make the language come alive. It's one thing to learn grammar and vocabulary, but to truly speak a language fluently, you need to understand how people use it in real-life conversations.
Exactly. And it's those real-life experiences that make language learning so rewarding. You can study all the grammar rules you want, but until you start using the language in context, it's hard to really feel like you've mastered it.
And I think that's one of the most exciting things about learning a language. Pieces of the puzzle finally come together.
Yeah, and that's when you realize how much progress you've made. Even the smallest interaction, like asking for directions or ordering food, can make you feel so accomplished.
And those moments add up, right? Each of those small victories gives you more confidence, and eventually, you look back and realize how much you've grown in your language learning journey.
Absolutely. And it's also important to remember that there's no perfect in language learning. No one speaks without mistakes, and that's perfectly okay. What matters is how much you're learning and improving over time.
I think embracing the mistakes and learning from them is one of the most valuable parts of the process. Mistakes aren't failures, they're opportunities to grow and get better.
Couldn't agree more. Mistakes are part of the learning process, and they're actually a sign that you're challenging yourself and stepping outside your comfort zone. So, don't be afraid of them. Embrace them.
Exactly. And when you do make a mistake, it's important to reflect on it and figure out how you can improve next time. It's all about continuous growth.
And remember, the more you practice, the fewer mistakes you'll make. It's just a matter of repetition and time. So, keep at it. You're doing great.
Well said, Jacob. Keep pushing forward, stay motivated, and never forget to celebrate your progress. Language learning is a lifelong journey, but with every step you take, you're getting closer to your goal.
Definitely, keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, enjoy the journey. The effort you put in will always pay off in the end.
Absolutely. Stay consistent, stay curious, and remember, you're on the right path.
One thing that can also really help when you're learning a language is embracing different methods. Like you said earlier, Daniel, it's not just about studying from a book or taking formal lessons. There are so many ways to practice, and sometimes, the most fun ones are the most effective.
Yes, exactly. I found that watching movies or shows in English, especially with subtitles in your native language, can really help you get used to the flow of the language. You pick up on pronunciation, new vocabulary, and even cultural references that you might not get from just reading.
That's such a good point. I've started listening to music in English too. And I'm not talking about just listening to it passively, but actually trying to understand the lyrics. It's amazing how much it helps with both vocabulary and listening skills. Plus, when you're familiar with a song, it's easier to remember certain words or phrases.
I love that. Music is such a great tool because it's not only fun but also really reinforces rhythm, pronunciation, and even the colloquial ways people speak. It's like learning by immersion, but through something enjoyable.
And podcasts. Honestly, podcasts have been one of my go-to methods. There are so many different topics out there. Whether it's news, stories, interviews, or educational content. So you can always find something that interests you. And you can listen anywhere, whether you're commuting, exercising, or doing chores at home.
I completely agree. Podcasts are a fantastic way to practice listening, and they often introduce you to a more natural, conversational way of speaking. It's different from the structured lessons in textbooks, but it helps with learning how people actually speak in real life.
That's exactly it. It's all about finding ways to fit learning into your daily life, even when you're not actively studying. You can make English a natural part of your routine, and the best part is that it doesn't feel like work. It just becomes part of your day.
And that's key, making it natural. For instance, if you're someone who loves cooking, try following recipes in English. If you enjoy reading, try reading novels or articles in English. The more you integrate it into your hobbies or interests, the less it will feel like a task and the more it will feel like something you just do.
Right? And even with social media, there's so much content in English. You can follow pages, watch videos, and even engage in comments in English. It's a great way to practice and also see what's trending in the language and culture.
Oh, absolutely. Social media is a goldmine for language learning. And the best part is that it's not just about consuming content. You can engage with others, practice writing, and even try to keep up with the latest slang, which, as we all know, changes quickly in any language.
Yeah, learning slang is a fun part of language learning too. It's often used in casual conversation, so when you pick it up, it makes your speech sound more natural. But of course, you also have to be careful and make sure you're using it in the right context.
How, yes. It's easy to accidentally use slang in the wrong way, especially when you're still learning, but that's okay. Like we said earlier, mistakes are part of the journey, and slang is something you gradually pick up as you become more familiar with the language.
Right. And speaking of mistakes, sometimes learners get frustrated when they can't express themselves the way they want to. But that's completely normal. The important thing is to keep practicing and trying. Even if it's just a small conversation, you're still making progress.
Exactly. And a big part of making progress is consistency. You don't need to study for hours every day, but if you can dedicate just 15-30 minutes a day, you'll see steady improvement over time.
That's a great point, Daniel. Even short, consistent practice is more effective than cramming once a week. It's all about forming a habit, and the more you practice, the more fluent and comfortable you'll become with the language.
Yes, absolutely. Language learning is like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And that muscle memory applies to speaking, writing, and even thinking in English. Over time, it just becomes easier.
And I think one of the most rewarding parts of learning English is when you start thinking in English, rather than translating everything from your native language. It's a huge milestone and shows that you're truly immersing yourself in the language.
That's such a huge milestone. You stop hesitating and everything just flows naturally. It's amazing how that shift happens with consistent practice.
Absolutely. And that's when you know you've reached a level of fluency where English isn't just something you study. It's something you live. It becomes second nature.
And the great thing is, once you hit that point, you'll start to enjoy the language even more. You'll be watch movies or have conversations for practice.
Yeah, and once you're at that level, you can also start exploring more complex topics. You can dive deeper into English literature, understand more advanced podcasts, and engage in higher level discussions without feeling stuck.
Exactly, and that's when the world really opens up. English becomes not just a tool for communication, but a bridge to endless opportunities, whether it's for travel, work, or connecting with people from all around the world.
I think that's one of the reasons why learning English is so powerful. It's not just about mastering grammar or
That learning English becomes so much more exciting. It's not just about passing exams or checking off boxes. It's about opening
No matter where you are right now, you're on the right path.
well said. Keep pushing forward and never lose sight of why you started in the first place.
exactly. And remember, it's a journey. Celebrate each step, no matter how small. It all adds up to something big in the end.
Absolutely. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember, you're doing great. Thank you both for such an amazing conversation today, and to everyone listening, keep up the great work. And that's what makes language learning such a rewarding journey. It's not just about the end result, but all the little victories along the way. Each new word you learn, each sentence you speak with more confidence.
Exactly, Sophia. It's like each piece of the puzzle coming together. At first,
To grow. Even native speakers learn new words and expressions, and they continue to improve their language skills throughout their lives. So, this journey never truly ends.
That's such a great point, Jacob. No one ever truly masters a language, they just get more comfortable with it, find more ways to express themselves, and discover more nuances along the way. And as you said, that's what makes it exciting. It's a lifelong process.
absolutely. And I think one of the most exciting aspects of language learning is how much it connects you with the world. You can engage with people from different backgrounds, understand different perspectives, and be a part of a global conversation.
Yes, and being able to connect with people from around the world is one of the most fulfilling things about learning a language. It opens doors to new friendships, new cultures, and even new career opportunities. The possibilities are endless.
And with that in mind, don't ever feel discouraged if progress seems slow sometimes. It's completely normal. It's all about consistency and taking small steps forward. Remember, those small steps eventually lead to big strides.
Exactly.
That you're keeping at it, staying motivated, and finding ways to make it enjoyable.
Yes, motivation is such a key part of the journey. When you're motivated, learning feels less like a chore and more like something you enjoy. Whether it's because you want to travel,
The reason you started learning in the first place. That reason can be a great source of motivation when you hit a rough patch.
Definitely. Your why can remind you that every effort is worth it. Whether it's personal growth, career advancement, or just the joy of being able to understand, speak with more people, it's all worth it in the end.
so true. And the beauty of it is that you don't have to figure everything out all at once. It's okay to start small and gradually build up your skills. Over time, those small steps add up to something incredible.
And before you know it, you'll be at a point where you can express yourself clearly, understand others, and have meaningful conversations. It's all about enjoying the journey and celebrating the progress you make.
Absolutely. And as we've discussed, there are so many ways to practice that don't feel like traditional studying, whether it's through conversations, music, movies, or even social media. Learning English can be a fun, natural part of your everyday life.
Exactly. And to everyone listening, remember, you are capable of so much more than that.
Couldn't have said it better, Sophia. Just keep moving forward, even if it's one step at a time. Progress is progress, no matter how small.
And if you ever
Keep enjoying the process. We're all in this together. Keep up the great work, and we'll catch you all in the next conversation. That's such a great way to put it, Jacob. It's all about making steady progress. Even if it feels like things are moving slowly, trust me, you're moving forward. And that's what matters.
And speaking of progress, it's amazing how much technology has changed the game when it comes to language learning. With apps, online courses, podcasts like this one, and so many other resources, English has never been more accessible.
English with subtitles, using language exchange apps, or listening to podcasts, there are endless ways to expose ourselves to the language.
That's so true. Technology has really opened up the world of learning. And for language learners.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most powerful tools technology offers is the
Content in English. Whether it's short skits, vlogs, or educational videos, it's an easy way to pick up new words and phrases while enjoying content you already love.
I love that you brought up the fun side of learning, Jacob. That's such an important point. The more fun and engaging your learning methods are, the more likely you are to stick with them. So, don't be afraid to get creative. Watch movies, play video games, listen to your favorite music, and engage in social media in English. It all adds up.
Exactly. And the best part is that you're not only learning language in a formal sense, you're also absorbing culture, your understanding of the language, and get a real feel for how it's used in everyday life.
That's the beauty of learning a language. It's not just about grammar rules and vocabulary lists. It's about learning to think, express yourself, and connect with others in a completely different way. And the more immersed you are, the faster that process happens.
Yes, immersion is key. It's like diving into a new world. The more you surround yourself with the language, the easier it becomes to think in English, to pick up on the subtleties, and to really feel comfortable with it.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's all part of the process. In fact, making mistakes is one is a learning opportunity.
And honestly, the best way to learn from mistakes is to embrace them. In a way, every mistake brings you closer to becoming fluent because you're identifying areas you need to focus on. And each time you correct yourself, it gets easier.
Exactly. Mistakes are just stepping stones to success. They're not something to be ashamed of but rather embraced. Every time you make a mistake and then correct it, you're growing as a learner.
And it's also about persistence. Even if you 10-15 minutes of language practice a day,
Ways you didn't expect.
Absolutely. And I think the key is to find what works for you. Not everyone learns the same way, so it's important to experiment and see what methods you enjoy most. Whether it's through apps, books, podcasts, conversations, or all of them, mixing it up keeps things interesting.
Yes, finding your personal style of learning is crucial. Some people love grammar exercises, while others prefer conversation practice or watching movies. The more you enjoy your learning process, the easier it will be to stay motivated and continue.
And it's okay to change up your methods as you go along. As you progress, your needs and preferences may change, so don't hesitate to try new things. You might discover something that works even better than what you were doing before.
Exactly. Language learning isn't a rigid path. It's a journey, and that journey can be flexible. If something isn't working for you, it's okay to adjust and try something new. The most important thing is to keep moving forward and stay motivated.
And remember, it's not a competition. Everyone learns at their own pace, and that's perfectly fine. Your journey is unique to you. Focus on your burger and celebrate the victories, no matter how small.
Yes, every step counts. Whether it's mastering a tricky pronunciation, remembering a new word, or being able to hold a conversation for the first time. Those are all wins. And they all contribute to your progress.
Yes, every achievement is worth celebrating, no matter how big or small. The more you recognize your progress, the more motivated you'll feel to keep going. And don't forget to have fun along the way. Learning a language should be an enjoyable experience.
Absolutely. And just remember, the journey might be long, but it's definitely worth it. There's a whole world of people and opportunities waiting for you as you learn English.
And in the end, the goal isn't just to speak another language. It's to connect with others,
Opportunities. Keep going and keep enjoying the process. Language learning is truly an adventure, and you're doing great.
Absolutely. Every conversation you have in English, every new word you learn, and every mistake you make is all part of this amazing journey. Keep going, and don't forget to enjoy the ride.
Yes, and remember, the more you practice, the more confident you'll become. One day, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. And that's a wonderful feeling.
Well said, Jacob. You've all got this. Keep practicing, stay motivated, and enjoy the journey. See you all next time, and keep up the great work. I love how we're all on the same page about the importance of enjoying the journey, and how learning English really is about persistence and patience.
The more fun it becomes because you start seeing all the progress you've made.
Right? And it's also about embracing different stages of learning. In the beginning, you might feel overwhelmed with all the vocabulary and grammar rules. But once you get a hold of the basics, you can focus more on conversations, slang, and culture. It starts to feel much more natural.
That's a great point, Jacob. And I think it's important to remember that English isn't just about textbooks and exercises. It's about real-world usage, how people speak in everyday conversations, how they express themselves, the idioms they use. That's where the fun really kicks in.
Absolutely. English is so dynamic, it evolves all the time. That's why it's exciting. You're never really done learning. Even native speakers are always picking up new phrases or ways of expressing themselves. It's a living language.
And that's what makes it such a great language to learn. There's always something new to discover. One minute, you're learning some formal phrases for a professional email, and the next minute, you're picking up some cool new slang from a YouTube video or a song.
Yes, and let's not forget about the different accents and dialects. English isn't just spoken in one way. There's British English, American English, Australian English, and countless other variations around the world. Each region adds its own flavor to the language, making it even more fascinating to learn.
Oh, definitely. And you start realizing that there's no perfect way to speak English. What matters is being understood. Once you focus on that, it takes the pressure off and lets you embrace different ways of speaking.
Yeah, and I think once you get comfortable with English, you'll start noticing how much easier it is to understand different accents, It's all part of the process. At first, it might be hard to follow someone with a strong accent, but over time, you get better at recognizing the sounds and context.
That's so true, Jacob. And listening to different accents and learning about the cultural nuances that come with them is one of the best ways to truly understand the language. It makes your experience richer and deeper.
Exactly. And this is where exposure really helps. The more you expose yourself to various accents and styles of speaking, the more well-rounded your understanding of the language becomes. Watching movies, listening to podcasts, and talking to people from different parts of the world all contribute to this.
Plus, it's always fun to pick up a few words or phrases from other regions. Even if you're not using them in formal settings, they can make conversations more interesting and connect you with others on a cultural level.
I love that. You could be talking to someone from the UK, and they'll say something like, "I'm knackered," meaning they're really tired. Or in Australia, someone might say, "I'm flat out," when they're super busy. These little differences make learning even more fun, and they help you build a stronger connection with the language.
Oh, and don't forget about slang. Slang is such an interesting part of English. Some of it is timeless, like cool or awesome. But then there's new slang popping up all the time, especially with social media. Keeping up with slang can help you sound more natural and keep your conversations fresh.
For sure. And once you start to get the hang of slang, you realize how much more expressive you can be. For example, instead of saying "I'm really happy," you could say "I'm over the moon." Or instead of saying "I don't know," you could say "I'm clueless." It's a fun way to switch up your vocabulary.
Exactly. And it also helps you understand how people in different parts of the world are using the language. It's not just about being grammatically correct. It's about being able to speak and understand in a way that feels authentic to the people you're talking to.
Right. And the great thing about English is that there's always room for growth. Whether you're mastering formal language for a job interview or learning the latest social media lingo to connect with younger generations, there's always something to learn.
I think that's why English is. It's versatile, it's constantly evolving, and it's not confined to just one place. It's a language that adapts to the needs of the people who speak it.
Absolutely. And for learners, that means there's no one right way to learn. Some people might love focusing on grammar, while others want to dive into speaking right away. Some people might thrive in formal learning environments, while others prefer a more casual approach with media or social interactions. It's about finding what suits you.
Exactly, Sophia. And there's no one-size-fits-all method. It's about experimenting and finding the right mix of activities that make the process enjoyable and effective for you. Keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, keep enjoying it.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Daniel. English learning is an adventure, and it's not about reaching some end goal. It's about the journey. Each step you take brings you closer to fluency and opens up more opportunities.
And I think that's the best mindset to have. Focus on the process, celebrate the small victories, and keep pushing forward. You'll be amazed at how far you can go, and before you know it, you'll be confidently speaking and understanding English in ways you never imagined. Keep at it, and enjoy every moment of the journey.
Absolutely. And remember, it's okay to take breaks too.